Our group would like to inform you of Vosotros and Nosotros commands. So, Vosotros, positive and negative, steps to form. For the affirmative or positive steps to forming Vosotros commands, first, you're going to take the infinitive form of the verb, then you're going to take away the R, and finally add a D to the end. For example, sacar would change to sacad. Comer would change to comed, and ir would change to id. Now for negative steps to forming Vosotros commands. First, you're going to take the present yo form of the verb. Then, remove the O again. And finally, add ace for AR verbs and ice for ER verbs. Some tips. Don't forget that for car, gar, and zar verbs, add the opposite ending. For boot verbs that end in AR or ER, do not use a change in the yo form. Finally, for boot verbs that end in IR, there is a change from O to U and from E to I. Finally, don't forget to put no before the verb. Some examples. Sacar changes to no saques. Comer changes to no comais. Ofrecer becomes no ofrezcais, and despertar becomes no despertéis.
Irregular and reflexive affirmative Vosotros. For the affirmative or positive form of Vosotros commands, there are no irregulars. For the affirmative or positive form of Vosotros commands, there are no irregulars. For reflexives, remove the R from the end of the infinitive and add os to the end of the verb, replacing se. An example is lavarse. To make a positive Vosotros reflexive command, change it to lavaos. The only irregular reflexive is for IR verbs, where you replace the os and add an accent over the I. An example is divertirse. This changes to divertios. These are the main normal irregular endings on most mandatos. Remember that they are only on the negative in the Vosotros commands form. Ofrecer becomes no ofrezcais. Convencer becomes no convenzcais. Recoger becomes no recojais. Satisfacer becomes no satisfagais. Conseguir becomes no consigais. Tocar becomes no toqueis. Legar becomes no llegueis. Almorzar becomes no almorceis. And distribuir becomes no distribuyeis. The only irregular verbs for Vosotros commands are dishes. Again, they are only negative. Dar is no dace without an accent. Ir is no vayais with an accent on the A. Ser is no seais with an accent on the A. Aber is no ayais. Estar is no estés. And saber is no sepais. All of these have accents except for dar.
Okay, here's the Vosotros practice. Vosotros go a la iglesia. This is Vosotros id a la iglesia because you take off the R and put on a D. Vosotros don't leave la fiesta temprano. Vosotros no salgáis la fiesta temprano. This is no salgáis because you use the yo form, take off the O, and add ice on IR verbs, and you add the no because it's negative. Vosotros make la cena español. Vosotros haced la cena español. This is because you take off the R on hacer and put in a D on the positive. Vosotros clean tu cuarto. Vosotros lavad vuestros cuartos. This is because you take off the R and replace it with a D on lavad. Vosotros don't choose la respuesta equivocada. Vosotros no escogéis la respuesta equivocada. This is because you add a no because it's negative and take the O off the yo form of escoger and add ice because it's an ER verb. Vosotros fall asleep rápido. Vosotros dormíos rápido because dormirse is reflexive and you add, instead of putting a D, you add the reflexive os and put an accent on the I. Vosotros don't breathe debajo del agua. Vosotros no respiréis debajo del agua. You add the no because it's negative. You take the yo form of respirar, take off the O, and add ace because it's an AR verb. Vosotros drive a la práctica. Vosotros manejad a la práctica. Manejad is take off the R and add D because it's positive. Vosotros don't use las computadoras. No. Vosotros no uséis las computadoras. You have the no because it's negative and ace because it is an AR verb. Vosotros don't lie to me. Vosotros no me mintáis. All the reflexive and no are in front of the verb because it is negative, and it's mintáis because it's an IR verb. You add the ice, and it's a boot stem verb in the present, so you take off the E and add an I.
Nosotros commands. Nosotros positive commands. Start with the present tense yo form of the verb. Take off the O at the end. If it's an AR verb, add amos. If it's an ER or IR verb, add amos. If you have any direct or indirect objects, they are attached to the end of the verb. For example, digámoslo. Nosotros negative commands. The negative commands follow the same rules as the positive, but you add no in front of the verb. If you have any indirect or direct objects, they will go before the verb, but after the no. For example, no lo digamos. Car verbs. For car verbs, take the present tense yo form and take off the O. Then change the C to QU and add amos, so it sounds like quemos. For example, tocar. The yo form would be toco, and it ends up being toquemos. Gar verbs. For gar verbs, take the present tense yo form of the verb and take off the O. Then you would change the G to GU and add amos, so it sounds like gamos. For example, entregar. The yo form is entrego, so it would be entregamos. Zar verbs. For zar verbs, take the present tense yo form of the verb and take off the O. Then you change the Z to C and add amos, so it sounds like semos. For example, abrazar. The yo form is abrazo, so it would be abracemos. Ser verbs with a vowel. For ser verbs that have a vowel before ser, like conocer, the yo form in the present tense has a Z-C-O. For example, conocer. The yo form is conozco, so it would be conozcamos. For ser verbs with a consonant, that have a consonant before ser, like vencer, in the yo form, the C changes to a Z,